Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Brad Neufeld Show right here on King's Information Network. Today is the day where we will discover that every challenge that you face in life is conquerable, especially when we work together. And those of you who have been listening to my show for years understand that by now. You got to have other people in your life. Otherwise, it's very difficult to get the things that you want. There's no such thing as a self-made millionaire. I hate that term, but anyway. Perhaps my guest and I can discuss that today. But anyway, Brett Lechtenberg is our guest today, and Brett is the author of the book Reclaiming the Clock, and also the developer of the Operation Limitless project, of which I'm confident you're going to love this here. So there are some people out there doing some good things, but if you're not made aware of it, you just don't know what's out there to provide you resources for the things that you need in order to become the best you can be. But Brett is a nationally recognized expert on business and personal empowerment. His transformational skills, including entrepreneurial coaching, systems development, and implementation, as well as a personal mastery and family safety, and mastering family safety. That's great. And you're also black belt? Anyway.
Yeah, I've got a few of those.
You got a few of those? Is it specifically in a specific genre of martial arts, or?
I have a 7th degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Okay.
I completed all my necessary qualifications for my 8th degree, waiting for that to come about.
Okay.
But I have black belts in Kempo, karate.
Okay.
I have black belts in Hapkido. I have black belts in other styles as well, and some color belts in other styles. I believe in continuous learning.
Very good. Well, I promise I won't say anything that'll make you mad, so you'll kick my butt here on. So that's all good. But Brett, you have so many things here that you've gotten into as far as helping people, and that's what I'm always intrigued with. This Limitless project. Matter of fact, let's start out with, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you start? And perhaps what is one of the biggest challenges that you've overcome in life?
Well, where did it all start? I grew up in a really small town in Washington called Chimacum, and doesn't even show up on most maps,
I was going to say, I've never heard of that.
Really small town. And growing up, my parents were divorced from age 2, so I spent some time living with my mom in another little town called Skagway, Alaska, kind of known for gold rush days back in.
Okay, because believe it or not, I've heard of Skagway.
Yeah, it's a pretty popular tourist place now, but when I lived there was nothing but gravel streets and wooden sidewalks. It was
wow.
Yeah, exactly.
That would have been cool.
It was kind of like Stand By Me in first, second, third grade, right?
Yeah.
It was just nothing there. And so I lived there with my mom for a couple of years, and we eventually moved back to Washington. And I had a pretty tumultuous upbringing back and forth between my mom was not always, sure what she wanted to do. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And so eventually in 4th grade, I ran away and went and found my dad and lived with him.
Okay.
And kind of lived with my dad from 5th grade on in Chimacum. And having grown up with a fair amount of abuse in my early part of my life, it made me realize that, or at least I thought I had to do more, right? You have to do more, show your worth. And so it constantly pushed me to want to excel at whatever it was that I was doing. So I got pretty good grades in school. I did well in sports. And I kind of maintained that philosophy, if you will, all the way through college. It was all about excelling, competing, doing more, being better. Yeah. I think for recognition or for whatever reasons. And as you get older, you start to realize that's kind of a broken model. And what can I do to take my experiences that some were positive? I mean, I'm still the only state track champion in my high school's history. I mean, it's a really small town, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so things like that. I mean, I had some successes and that was great, but you eventually have to figure out, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to be? Yeah. And how, for me, it was always, I don't know why I've always been an idealist. But what can I do to help others?
Right.
And after I went to college, graduated with my degree in operations management, basically how to make things run, and went to work as a manager and eventually a training manager and general manager for both Denny's restaurants and Sherry's restaurants, and which was a great experience because in both of those situations, I ended up in restaurants that were suffering and failing. And I was able to take and turn those around basically because of hard work, just grit. I will not let these things fail, right? Same odd mentality that somehow, even with my inhibited upbringing, if you will, at certain stages.
Well, would you say that you got the drive from, I want to take this thing that's not working and make it work?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Now, where that came from, I don't exactly know. My grandparents were always, on my mom's side, were always big on, you can do anything you want in life. You can make things happen. And I, probably looking back, it's a conversation with my grandmother that made me realize that, just keep pushing, just keep doing, and keep going. And so I guess I did. I can't really narrow it down to anything other than that, than being an idealist and having just enough positive influence from my parents, especially from my grandparents and my dad, and later my mom, when her life kind of settled. Right. And just had that continuous drive, and I took over, like I said, a couple different restaurants that were failing, got those to work, and it got to be so painful for me, though, emotionally, to go to work 60, 70 hours a week. I bet. And just keep going through that my martial arts instructor was actually like, you need to go open a martial arts school. And I thought, if I put 70 hours a week into my own business, I should at least be as successful as I am making money for everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that started me on a quest of, okay, I'll open a martial arts school. And it became, well, where am I going to do that? Now, being in Washington State, there's a lot of martial arts in Washington State. And martial arts, like any high-level sport, it got into the Olympics and other things.
That Bruce Lee's philosophy? I know he started in Seattle there. So
yeah, well, he's kind of different martial art in different time.
Yeah,
but there can be a lot of politics in it, right?
Right.
And so I never wanted to have any kind of political influence. Again, political being from the martial arts world, not actual
right
Republicans, Democrats, that kind of thing. In my school. So it became a matter of, where am I going to open my first martial arts school? And being, at that time I was in Bellingham, where I was after I'd graduated from college. And I had been down here to Salt Lake a couple of times teaching some seminars for a school that at one point was actually here. It's no longer around, but I taught some martial arts seminars here. And as I got closer to opening up, my whole philosophy was, well, I'm giving up my house, my condo that I had at the time, my job. And I thought, well, if I lost everything, how far could I live away and still make it home and go live back with my dad or my mom if I lost it all? And the goal was, I couldn't live farther away than I could get back home on $100 gas money.
Okay.
So,
well, to have that safety net, so to speak, that gives you confidence. Okay, I can take it to that place there. Yeah, that's good.
So Salt Lake was as far as I could get. I knew a handful of people here. I had a friend here at the time who helped me get an apartment. And my now wife moved with me. And
good sign.
Yeah. We opened our first martial arts school. It was 23 years ago, August 4th. This last August 4th.
Yay.
And, yeah. And I can't make it home on $100 gas money anymore, so I'm stuck here.
I love it. Thank goodness gas went up because you're here.
Yeah, exactly. But I've always used my martial arts school as a testing ground for my philosophies, my theories, right? In a positive way. It's my incubator, if you will, my mastermind, and I teach my instructors the things that I've put together through time, through the arts, through college, through my own trial and error, through different mastermind groups, and it continues to be that way. And it's given me the platform. We've fortunately done well, and it's given me the platform and the ability to go out and test, train with, essentially do what I wanted to do, and develop the theories, good or bad, right, over time, and wean out the ones that were not good and grow the ones that made the most positive impact.
Well, at what point, because you're doing the martial arts here, you're teaching that, and then you had the inspiration for your book here, Reclaiming the Clock. To some people, that would look like, man, those two contrasts, they don't quite fit. But I see where it fits. But tell the audience a little bit about what happened there. When did you get this idea of, I want to write this book?
Yeah, well, Reclaiming the Clock wasn't the first book. My first book was the anti-bully program and then the anti-cyberbully program.
Of which we'll talk about
coming up some. Yeah, and I've always, having a degree in operations management and being in the 24-hour restaurant field and being someone who is just a freak about time, being as effective as humanly possible. Yeah. The writing the books, developing the curriculum, I used to hear so many times, you can't possibly get X done in this amount of time. You can't get Y done. You can't get it done effectively. And I was like, you know what? That's just not true.
Right.
Everybody's got the same 24 hours in a day. How come some people are so massively more productive than others? And it boils down to a few philosophies. But I started putting this together in college because we used to practice queuing theory and how to get things done in the shortest amount of time, and we analyzed lots and lots of businesses. I was really fortunate when I got out of college. I went to work for Denny's. It wasn't my first job out of college, but I went to work for Denny's, and I had my general manager, my district manager were both highly effective managers. They could get a massive amount done in a really short period of time. In a multi-million-dollar restaurant, right? We had one of the highest volume restaurants and bars and everything. And I was really fortunate because those two ladies really showed me how to manage people effectively, how to really take some of the stuff I learned in college, which was more of a production degree than it was than a service degree, but it had service component, and how to put some of those things to light in practicality. And it served me well, still serves me well. Those lessons to this day when I'm managing my own staff for both of my brick and mortar businesses and other stuff. And it led me, always was with me, whether I was in a mastermind group, whether I was training somewhere, whether I was developing curriculum, didn't matter. These theories all link together. And how do you stop bullying in the fastest manner possible, right? People say, it takes months and you got to do it. No. My theory is it takes about 3 days, and I've proven it over and over. Same with cyberbullying. Right. And how do you develop a staff? Well, people say, you're lucky you've got a great staff. Well, luck had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Luck had nothing to do with it. Really? It was all hard work and focused training. And I believe luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
Bingo. Bingo. I love it.
So
remember that, everybody. And if you don't get it, work your tail off and then watch the opportunities come to you. Those opportunities are passing you by every day, but because you're not prepared, you're not going to realize them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And has everything been a winner? No. Fallen on my face many times. The difference is I'm willing to get back up. Yeah, that's probably the martial artist in me. We get kicked or get knocked down, you get banged up. Well, you still got to get up. You got to finish whatever it is that you start.
Exactly.
And so reclaiming the clock really became because I was really tired of hearing people, I don't have time. I just can't get this done. I can't get X done in Y time. It's like, no. Yep. And I was fortunate over time. I belonged to some really high-powered masterminds where I really paid people really significant money. Teach me how to put books, programs together, how to develop coaching structure so that it's effective. And through those, I got to learn their habit management systems. Some people like to call it time management. I don't believe you can manage time.
No. I've had an issue with that sentence myself. So.
And so between college, which was all on operations and how to make things done, and then having some really great role models through my first business experiences, what I'll just call corporate America, and then my own experiences running my own business where people say, most people go out of business in the first 2 years, and fighting that battle and overcoming that, and then developing curriculum and reclaiming the clock really became the model by which I run my life. It's exactly how I teach people, my clients, how to get their businesses on track, how to get whatever it is that you're struggling with, that you're blaming time, how to get it on track. Because it's not time. It's the things that the way you look at certain situations and the way you manage your habits.
Well, and I like how you also state in there how you got to map out your individual values and create clarity on what it is that I don't think a lot of programs or books ever go there. They just say, this is the template, follow it, you'll be successful. And again, I have a hard time with that because I did that when I was depressed. I was reaching for everything I could possibly get, and I would follow it exactly to the T, and then I'd get so far into it and go, you know what, this doesn't feel right. Something's not there.
Right.
And so what would you advise people on when you're talking to them about how to get that clarity of purpose or that map, to map your values, as you say?
Yeah. So my philosophy is, and I've seen other people prove this as well, is that most people end up living someone else's value structure. As we grow up, we get our value structure kind of imposed on us by our parents, the activities that we go to, church, whatever, right? And nobody's trying to be malicious towards us.
No.
It's just that we grow up with a certain set of expectations, and we get certain things set upon us, and we take them as reality, right? And they are reality to a point, but there's somebody else's reality. So you and I could have grown up in the same small town. Like I still have a great group of best friends. We grew up together, right?
Right.
And we still see each other all the time, 40 years later. We're as thick as you can believe.
Do you know how rare that is?
I know it is rare. And I was just home this last weekend. We all got together, right? People that came together. We all grew up with a similar value structure, but all of us, for whatever reason, were able and taught by our parents to tweak it and make it your own. And so even though my buddy Rick is now in the construction field and Rob does insurance and home investing, and Ty's a real estate guy, and Bob owns a successful electrical company and stuff, we all still have a very similar value structure, but everybody tweaked it to make their own success, right?
Love it.
And unfortunately, I think it's become, we live in a very polarizing world these days.
Yeah.
And
yes.
And
no one can doubt that, I don't think.
People will just accept what's given to them. They're not taught to be free thinkers. We were always taught to think for ourselves.
Yes.
And so when you get these value systems imposed on you and you go, well, my mom says to do this, 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 and this, so that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And then my dad says to do this, 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 and this. And you think, well, maybe that's what I should do. And then church says to do this. And Scout says to do whatever.
After a while, you lose sense of who you are.
Exactly. And for whatever reason, people forget that they are in total control of the values that they choose.
I love that.
There's a great quote by Steve Jobs that hangs in my martial arts school. I teach in my Limitless seminars. I'll paraphrase it, probably won't get it exactly right. He says, but the life you currently live was created by people who were no smarter and knew no more than what you do. And when you realize that, and you can begin to create your own life, and whatever you want becomes available to become yours. And so that's not the exact quote, but it's 100% true. When you realize that whatever everybody else is giving you is right for them, it's not necessarily right for you. And then you can't take into account the fact that they're probably in turmoil based on their own value structure. And if they're already complaining that they don't really enjoy their life, they're not happy with their job, or they come home complaining, then they're not someone to learn from anyway,
right,
other than is to learn what not to do.
Right.
So for me, if it's going to be habit management, because again, you can't manage time, you can only create habits that are truly effective based on your own value structure. And that's why I tell people to start there. What is your most important value to you, right? And for me, I'm very open about the fact that time is my most important value.
Right.
And then my health. It's not God, it's not my family, it's not my kids, not that I don't love those things, but what I came to realize for me is that if I master time, then everything else becomes easy. I have the time to devote towards having great health. I have the time to devote to
something you can control too.
Yes. And yeah, absolutely. The whole art, I won't even go down the whole healthcare rabbit hole.
Right.
Right. But I don't miss my kids' events.
Right.
I don't miss holidays. I don't miss birthdays.
That's awesome.
Nothing. My wife and I, we created a life with intention. Our martial arts school was designed, A, to help people, but B, to put our kids in front of us 24/7, 365, because I don't want somebody else having their negative influence on my child.
Right. Wow.
I want them to be in there learning our life skill lessons that we teach every day. And now my kids not only have those life skills, and they're not perfect. Everybody faces their challenge.
Exactly.
But now they're in teaching life skill lessons to others.
That's cool.
Right? And
That's
when you
great.
see that happening, it's like, wow, okay, if I died today,
Your legacy continues.
my legacy
I love
continues.
That. Love
right?
that.
And that was the whole point. And so, is everything I do perfect? Of course not. We're always testing and tweaking. We're willing to learn. We're willing to think outside the box. And we're willing to see what really works across the broadest spectrum of people.
Mm-hmm.
You can't help everybody.
Right.
Right? There's some people that need specialty help in certain areas for whatever reason.
Agreed.
But across the broad spectrum, there are definitely patterns, there are definitely habits, there are definitely educational components that work for the vast majority of people. However, I just don't think they're in front of everybody, and we've got a lot of diluted concepts and misconceptions and that kind of stuff.
Well, that again, what you're saying here, you can tell I'm in deep thought because I'm usually I'm usually talking a lot more. But I'm like, man, you're teaching. Oh, I'm writing profusely here so I can keep up with you here. Oh, this is great, Brett. Let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, let's talk about Operation Limitless.
Okay.
If that's okay, let's get into some details on that because that's something that many of our audience members will probably want to take advantage of with the things that you've got put together there. So anyway, our guest today is Brett Lechtenberg, and we're going to be right back after this break.
You are listening to Five Kingdoms Radio, where we inspire you to organize and align your life so that you can build a better you, a better family, and become a better friend and associate so that you can ultimately bless the world. If these are your goals and you want to help us build this life-changing network, we invite you to become a sponsor or advertise on our station. For more information on this amazing opportunity, please contact us at fivekingdomsradio.com.
Hello, everyone. This is Brad Neufeld, host of the Five Kingdoms Radio Show. Be sure and tune in every Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on our website at fivekingdomsradio.com. That's the number 5, kingdoms with a Y, radio.com. Thank you and have an awesome day. And welcome back to the Brad Neufeld Show. Our guest today, Brett Lechtenberg. Again, Brett is the author of the book Reclaiming the Clock and also the creator of Operation Limitless Project. We were talking a little bit through the break here, and I love, Brett, how you brought up that about how sometimes our traditions or the way we're raised, we tend to go, okay, I've got to be this certain way. And I know from experience and working with people over the years too, sometimes those things just don't work. And so what I would preach to people is listen to everything that everyone says and then take the pieces that apply to you and then let go of the rest. But it reminds me of a story that I heard one time of a reporter who happened to go to a Thanksgiving dinner with this young lady, and when she cooked the turkey, she would cut the ends off of the turkey and put it in the oven. And he asked, out of curiosity, why do you cut the ends off? And she said, well, it tastes better when you do it that way. And he goes, oh, interesting. And so he just so happened to come across, he asked her, where'd you learn that from? And I learned that from my mom. And so he just happened to come across her and talk to her mom. He says, okay, can you tell me why you taught your daughter to cut the ends off the turkey? She says it makes it taste better. And the mom says, well, yeah, it does. It actually does. And whatnot. And so he thought, man, that's interesting too, because I don't know how it would be any different. Well, then he happened to be able to talk to the grandma. And he says, Grandma, I understand that, your daughter and your granddaughter, they cut the ends off the turkey and they've been taught that it makes it taste better. I want to know how. And the grandma says, well, the only reason I cut the ends off is it wouldn't fit in my oven at the time. And so, but it's amazing how, things can get passed down from generation to generation. And again, it's not that it doesn't work, but you got to try it on and see if it works for you as an individual. Is that what you're getting out there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I heard the same story, but it was the ends of the ham.
Ends of the ham.
Yeah,
okay.
The ham didn't fit in the pan, so we had to cut the ends of the ham.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. I mean, even you find that, Bruce Lee in the martial arts, you brought him up earlier.
Yeah.
He was very much an advocate and considered a rebel because he said, the martial arts has too many fixed positions. It has too much stylized movement. And he said, you take the parts from all the different arts and you keep the ones that work for yourself and you get rid of the rest. That was his philosophy in the arts. And it's probably his biggest real contribution to the arts. No offense to any Bruce Lee fans out there, but he got people to think outside the box about how to use more martial arts.
Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah, yeah, and just keep experimenting, keep testing, keep looking, and look how that's evolved. It went from very stylized. Now we've got MMA, which is one of the most popular sports in the world, and it's growing. So you look at those things and that philosophy you can see through many different disciplines, whether it's the arts, whether it's counseling, whatever, right? And how to take those things. And if we did it as individuals on a more regular basis, I think we'd have a much more happy and more satisfied life.
Awesome. Well, what you showed me so far here on Operation Limitless is this anti-bullying program, and boy, people could use this today more than ever because this just seems to be an epidemic that just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. But to start this off, again, you're doing your martial arts. You come up with this idea for the anti-bullying program. Kind of take us through that. Where did you get the inspiration, or what prompted you to do this?
Well, obviously, a few years ago, bullying, for whatever reason, hit the news in a much bigger way. Now, bullying has always been around, as you know. When we were kids, there was bullies. There's bullies today, and there'll be bullies into the future, right? The thing that there's a couple things that frustrated me. One, people would talk about stopping bullying. Well, you can't stop bullying. What you can do is mitigate it, and you can mitigate its effects, right? But you have to do it through a process that's very specific. It's like traffic accidents. This is what I tell parents all the time. Okay. We have traffic lights. We have driving courses. Yeah. We have safer cars. We got seatbelt. We got a million
all the elements are in place to keep people safe, but
we still have traffic accidents.
Right.
So quit lying to children and lying to people that you can stop bullying. You're always going to have bad people, and you're going to always have people that make bad decisions.
Right.
So let's come from a realistic standpoint, and let's teach people how to diminish bullying as much as we possibly can, and let's teach them how to diminish the negative effects of bullying, and then how do we turn it into a lesson, right? And so in the martial arts, you don't walk into a martial arts school, people don't get bullied in a martial arts school.
No.
And it's not because you're going to kick or punch somebody or do anything violent. It's because of the level of self-confidence and the way that we teach people to avoid violence. We teach them not to just run away and be scared, but how to be confident people and communicate effectively. And when you learn how to do that, and you understand what we call the precursors to violence, or violence indicators, some people call them, and you understand what that looks like, and you understand what to do to mitigate that, then it's easy to put it into an anti-bullying program. And it's not, I'll probably make some enemies here, it's not verbal judo and some of these other things. It's how you communicate through your confidence, what I call confidence indicators. I coined the term confidence indicators. That's your body language, eye contact, tone of voice, and how you actually use those. If you went out to the prison out here and you interviewed 100 violent offenders and asked them, how'd you pick your targets? Now, I haven't done this at this prison out here.
Right.
But if you go out there and do it, guess what you're going to find? They looked like an easy target.
Yeah, and you hear it all the time.
That lady, let's say it's a lady, she had her hands full with her grocery bag. She wasn't paying attention as she was getting into her car. So she was a lot easier to make a target than the other lady who had her keys out, head up, walking to her car with purpose, unlocked her door, got in, locked the door. It's all about the image that you present through your body language, your eye contact, and the tone of voice. That alone will mitigate violence, will drop the possibility of you being a target dramatically.
Okay.
Dramatically.
And these are classes you teach?
Absolutely.
Okay.
These are the very first things we teach in women's self-defense. They're the very first things we teach for anti-bullying. They're the very first things we teach. If you go to bodyguard school, the first thing they're going to show, well, maybe not the first, but one of the things they're going to teach you is how to make your target look harder to get than somebody else's target.
Interesting.
Right? And so you don't have to be violent. You don't have to go around and shoot people and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Just look like a harder target through the image that you project. Right? Think about the Secret Service. The president does not look like an easy target.
No.
It's hard to get to the president. Can you get to him? Of course.
Of course.
Of course. But he looks like a very hard target. It's much easier to go somewhere else with security.
Right.
And it's like in your neighborhood. My Protecting the Castle program, based off the exact same philosophy. Make your house look like a harder target than your neighbors. Guess where the criminal's most likely going to go? To your neighbors.
To your neighbors, right.
So when I rebuilt my fence around my house, I built the fence so that all my window wells were inside the fence. I made sure that there were no handles on the outside of my fence so you could see the entrance. But the entrance to my fence is right next to my neighbor's entrance, and you can see the handle on his fence.
Right.
Let them
So
go
you
to
know
my
exactly
neighbor.
where it
Now,
is,
I told
right.
my neighbor what I was doing, so he had
I
the
was going to say, I hope so.
to tell him. So they had the opportunity to do the same thing, but he was more concerned about being able to get into his fence when he wanted to. To me, I'd rather have a different methodology for that. And that's all. I just make my house, my family, my kids. I teach people how to look like a harder target, not through violence and intimidation, but simply through confidence, focus, and awareness.
Absolutely. And I love the title of this, Protecting Your Castle. Yeah, you put out a DVD that shows, that has videos on it that shows people how to do this. So yeah. And we'll talk about where you can get a copy of that here pretty soon. But Brett, what are your goals for this Operation Limitless project? I mean, what's your vision for it?
The original vision was to create a system for my martial arts students that would make confidence, self-confidence, high self-confidence, and high self-esteem their default programming, so that if they had to take a test at school, if they had to deal with a bully.
Interesting.
If they had...
So it builds the confidence one step at a time. Love it.
Exactly.
Love it.
So how do you create a default model where I don't think that's your go-to state, your emotional state, right? Your cognitive process and your emotional state. Well, I don't think most people have that. It's one of doubt. It's one of anxiety. They're not sure what they should do. Well, how do you create that? And then there was this twofold to that. It was, how do we give parents the tools to reinforce that with their kids, right? So the parents could be at home enforcing these same concepts to their kids. So even when the parent's not around, what's the voice you hear in your head, right? It's my dad. It's my mom saying, stand up straight, look people in the eye, speak clearly, right?
Right.
And how do we create this triangle between the child themselves, parent and home life, the martial arts school, because we know at school or other places, they're not going to have all these pillars necessarily in place. Some may, some may not. But if you've got at least anchored in for yourself, when you go home to mom and dad, that they're going to reinforce your belief system. If you come to the martial arts school, right, you've got other places reinforcing that cognitive process, that emotional process. And so it gives you validation, and you're more likely to do it, right? The more you get validated for anything, the more likely you are to continue on that behavioral path.
Exactly.
Right? If you hang around a bunch of degenerates 24/7, you're going to be a degenerate most likely.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I don't remember who said it, but they said you're an average. You are an average of your top 5 friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely true. And so this was the thing. How do we teach people to confidently deal with a bully, test taking, breaking a board at a belt promotion, whatever the case may be. And it was creating a model that we could teach in class. And that led me to reaching out to people in a variety of different endeavors. I started looking at psychology because psychology obviously studies these things, human performance. I saw a gentleman on the news, not on the news, but on a TV show. His name was Dr. Michael Gervais. He's the head of performance for the Seattle Seahawks. And then I watched more of his information and some of the stuff he was putting out. And I eventually reached out to him. and said, man, I really love your stuff. This is what I'm finding in my communities about confidence, about focus. I'd really like to cite a piece of your work, and here's how I'm going to do it. And at that point, it was just going to be a paper, kind of a white paper, if you will. And we were already teaching these concepts in the martial arts classroom, so it all kind of fit together. His team got back and said, yeah, you could go ahead and cite that work. That's no problem. Well, it led me to go even farther. Because of my, we'll call them failures with the anti-bully program, in that even though we trained thousands of kids and teachers, eventually, so many teachers want to say, well, I want to try something else. I want to do this other thing, even though they had no track record of being able to produce a positive result, or very little track record. I'll probably get some hate mail for that, but you can't bully the anti-bully guy.
No.
Anyway.
Good point.
Anyway, I decided that I was going to leave no doubt. I was going to prove my point, and I was going to prove it across a variety of industries, or I was going to go down in flames by not being able to prove it. Either way, I was good, right? $100 gas money philosophy.
Correct.
So I have a great friend named Mark Peterson, who at the time was the head of extreme endurance for Spartan Racing.
Okay.
He's a survival expert. I called Mark up and I said, here's my project. Here's what I want to do. I want to interview you. I want to know how you train people to survive arguably the world's most grueling event, even though they may not have the skills to do so. And he's only got a limited number of hours to do this, by the way, right?
Okay.
And he said, yeah, okay. So I interviewed him, asked him, we walked through the process, and he gave me the same 4-step process that I had developed for the martial arts, that I had heard Dr. Gervais talk about, that he'd done with the Seahawks and other places. And although we were all using different terms, it was the same process.
Right.
And I thought, okay, very interesting, cool. So I had another dear friend of mine named Sal Rossano, Special Forces medic, trauma survival specialist, the whole bit. The military sends him and his team around the globe to train other medic teams on how to keep people alive on the battlefield.
Okay.
And as well as do their other special forces duties. And I asked Sal to interview him, told him what I was doing. He basically kind of agreed and outlined the same 4-step process, which was, okay, now I'm onto something here. I'm getting it across a couple different things, right? So then another friend locally here, Sean Wickard, he was the first person to ever receive stem cell transplant and overcome transverse myelitis and lupus and be able to walk after being paralyzed. I think it was 21 times, partially or fully paralyzed 21 times. He's the only person in history, or at least at that point, to ever have done it. And we talked, and I interviewed him, and he agreed with the process.
Right.
Sean then introduced me to another gentleman who you've now met, Bill Schiffenauer, here here in Salt Lake.
Olympian. And man, he's a tough guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Bill and I had even though lived really right around each other. Mark, Sal, and I all live a half mile from each other, by the way, right? And but they didn't know each other. And so Sean introduced me to Bill via text message, I should say. And I got Bill on the phone, and if you know Bill's story, grew up on the streets of Salt Lake, eating out of dumpsters, eventually made it to the Olympics 3 times. I mean, incredible story. Incredible story. We'll just leave it at that.
Let's have him on here one day too.
Absolutely. He's already agreed. He agreed with the 4-step process, and he was like, yes. And he also had, there's another part to this, there's what I now call the defining moment. Everybody had a defining moment.
Right.
And so I'm literally sitting there at my desk, drumming my fingers on the desk, going, I've got a model here. I've got something that I can prove across multiple disciplines now. And I said to myself, who's got to have a great vetting process for self-confidence? Who's got to have out-of-this-world self-confidence? And I literally said those words out loud. And it hit me like a bolt of lightning. NASA's got to be the best, right? And I thought to myself, well, I don't know any astronauts.
Right.
But fortunately, my son Carter had just returned from the Lego Robotics World Championships. And they represented Utah for the world. And during their trip, they got to meet some astronauts. And one of his coaches is an actual rocket scientist.
Okay.
So I called up his coach. I said, Mark, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I've discovered. Can you introduce me to an astronaut? And he's like, well, they don't do a lot of these kind of interviews because they get asked to do so much stuff, right? I mean,
because there's so few of them and people are curious. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but he goes, I know one guy, And it took about 8 weeks before I actually got him on the phone, but he's also here local. His name's Kent Rominger. He's not just an astronaut. He was the first man to dock the space station to the space shuttle. He graduated from...
That just gave me chills.
He graduated from Top Gun. He leadership, it was great. I got him on Zoom for about 90 minutes. We talked a little more about leadership than I would say confidence, but he also basically agreed with the model. And he also had the defining moment in his life. And so it was really awesome, and that led me to just a series of other interviews, and again, this all was part of this. This really flashed back to not only the anti-bully program, but my youth is like, if you want to argue what I have to say, that's fine, but disprove it.
Right.
And I'm not going to allow you to disprove something that I've got so much evidence to prove. Right. And so maybe they will. But right now, I've interviewed bodyguards, men, women who have overcome incredible adversity, and I've got more interviews lined up, and talking with yourself and some of the incredible things that you've done in the counseling and world, being here with the Kings and meeting guys like Richard Paul Evans, who are he's what I call a 1%er, right? Top 1% of the world, 39-time best-selling author, right? And most of it's self-published, as I understand all that. I mean, those are things that the average person just doesn't realize they can do, but these other individuals have all gone and done it. And I'm willing to bet that when I get Mr. Evans to sit down with me and do an interview, so no pressure there, sir, hopefully you listen to this, that I bet those same steps come out. I'm just willing to bet it at this point. And so that's
well, you're on. I don't know what I'll bet you, because I know you're right.
So that's how it all came about. And then it's, I tested these things in a group of martial arts students. I got 25 people together. We did our first Operation Limitless. It was all on problem solving. Right. And I put that together. It was the confidence of overcoming problems. And from that, it went really well. So then I actually went and got Mark, the former Spartan guy, Sal, the Special Forces guy, and Bill, the Olympian. I brought them together and I said, you guys all need to know each other, because of all the people I've interviewed, all the people that I know this is the team. The four of us can actually accomplish this mission. And I laid it out to them, and they were all like, let's do it. Let's do it. Right. And so we've had now 2 Operation Limitless events. One was called Confidence Unleashed. Okay. And one was Confidence Through Adversity. Right. And all of our immersion trainings are 2-day events. They go Friday, late afternoon to evening, then all day Saturday. They're immersion style trainings where we go from real world lessons to classroom lessons. So people at any given time might show up. They might show up for one of the events. They get to stow their gear, and then they're given coordinates. It's like, we're meeting over here. Get in your car, let's go. And they show up, they come around the corner, and all the gear's laid out to go rappelling off the top of a mountain. Oh, wow. Right? And now I will say that everything we do, although it seems extreme to people, because of the skill set of everybody that I've interviewed, they all have the actual technical skills well above what is needed to accomplish these things. So they come around the corner, here's all the gear laid out to go rappelling off the side of this mountain. And fortunately, both Mark and Sal are like high-angle mountain rescue certified mountaineers and all kinds of other things. So we have the team to pull off really incredible adventures. And then we'll take them back to the classroom. We'll sit down. We'll walk them through. Yeah, and break it down. This is what you've learned here. I love it. Yeah, we've got what we call the decision matrix, and we'll teach them values alignment, and we'll teach them a lot of the same concepts we just talked about. And then it's like, okay, put on your coat. We're leaving. Right. And then they're off to the next thing, which might be how to snare food, might be how to shoot a gun on the firing range. All these things, like you say, give you confidence, because it's stuff that you've never done before. And when you realize, I can do this, to me, that's the only way to grow self-confidence. Exactly. So we try and take these real world lessons, put them together with word lessons, and get people to see the commonalities, right? Because people these days, many of them really just can't think outside the box. We're trained so much to think in very linearly. We're not really trained to think multidimensionally. Right. So we're trying to put them in as many dimensions as possible in a shorter period of time as possible, and show it how it all works. And when that happens, when you see it click, people go, Oh,
that's so cool. That's got to feel good as a trainer.
Yeah, we've had
seeing that in people.
Yeah, and so we've had 3 live events. One that was kids and adults, and then the 2 adult events. And we're now ready to schedule out and take them on a much bigger scale. We did the first ones for really no money. We didn't make any money off the deal. It was all about, can we provide great experience? Can we get good feedback? Can we get testimonials that are legit, right? Those kind of things. That's why we did them. And if it wouldn't have worked, we would have went back to the drawing board. But we, across the board, all of our micro adventures were successful in our immersion trainings. There's still things to modify and continue to improve, of course. But we're very confident that we have a very workable model that is very impactful in a very short period of time. And so the overall goal is how do we turn Utah, Sandy, Utah specifically, since 4 of us live there now, into the epicenter of human confidence training in the world.
That's so cool. And I love your direct approach. Never stop that. I know some people are afraid of that, but you don't have to be afraid of that. Brett, I can tell your heart is as big as Alaska. So I know you love helping people, and you're doing this for the right reasons, and that's what I love. So never stop that. We need to take one more quick break, but when we come back, let's Brett, tell us how we can find out more about this and how people can get engaged with it, because this will be definitely a life-changing experience for a lot of people out there. So anyway, we're going to be right back.
Hello, I want to take this time to say thank you for tuning in and listening to the Tribe of Kings Information Network. My name is Jay Carlton, and I am the host of the Jay Carlton Show. On my show, I will be talking about the world of insurance, starting with what I like to call the 5 cores of insurance. This is whenever I'm sitting down with others, and these are the 5 top things that they always want to talk about. Come on in, take a listen.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld of The Brad Neufeld Show, right here on 5 Kingdoms Radio. Tune in Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time to hear tips and strategies on how to overcome the challenges of life. You'll be glad you did.
Hello everyone, my name is Jay Walter, host of Rebuilding, a radio show right here on the Tribe of Kings Information Network. Be sure to tune in weekly to hear more about the Tribe of Kings and to learn how to overcome fear and rebuild your life every day as you become the man you want to be.
All right, and we're back. Closing segment here with our guest, Brett Lechtenberg. He is the creator of the Operation Limitless project. How can people find out? Well, before we go there, really quick, obviously it's taken a lot of time, and I love the fact that you didn't just come up with an idea and say, this is it. I mean, I think everybody ought to do this. You actually went out, talked to the experts, talked to people in there who are the best of the best in their field, and found these common elements. Mm-hmm. And my hat's off to you for doing that.
Oh, thank you.
So
I appreciate that.
I'm so grateful that you just put the time and effort into this. And I'm definitely, I want to be a part of this, Brett, if that's okay, any way that,
of course,
that I can be. Because again, I'm all about helping people overcome challenges of life. That's the theme to our show here. And so, again, I love your direct approach. And sometimes, what would you say to those people out there who are a little bit timid and go, oh, man, I just don't want that in-your-face stuff? Well, even though it's not that. But, I mean, what would you tell a person to help them to feel like, okay, I can go there and I can get what I need?
You know, you got to have a willingness to make a change, right? If you don't have a desire to actually make a change, no matter what I tell you, what I show you, what you show them, anybody else, nothing's going to stick. Right? If you've got to just be willing to put yourself out there first and do it. The thing with Limitless is we don't tell people what they're going to do during an event. We'll give them an overall view, but they don't know if they're rappelling, jumping out of an airplane, getting guns, sourcing their own food, building primitive fire with no matches, whatever it is. We don't tell them in advance.
Right.
We just give them the theme of the event. And there's only two kinds of people in this world you can help, in my opinion: the truly inspired or the truly desperate. Right? And
Isn't that interesting?
So those are the people I'm looking for. Are you really inspired to do something really fun and take it to the next level? Or are you just totally, absolutely sick of the way life's going and just want to conquer? And it's not all about financial or relationships. It's about just being a better you and not have to go, you say in your face. We're definitely not in your face kind of people. The people that are instructing Bill and Mark and Sal and myself, we're all about building you up. We're not about tearing people down in any way, shape, or form.
I love that.
It is all about taking you from where you're at and taking you to the next level. You don't have to go back and relive all of the pain and sadness of whatever you might have overcome and whatever trauma. What good is that going to do?
Right.
I mean, I understand that that's a model and there's some validity there, but that's not how we operate. We operate as, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put you in this situation. We're going to give you the skills. We're going to show you how. We're going to give you the application. When you're done, we're going to talk about it with you, and we're going to show you how you can apply it everywhere else, right? And people respond well to that. They don't. People are used to being coddled, but I don't think they really want to be coddled.
Well, in your books on your anti-bullying program, they're right here in front of me, and I just browsing through them just a little bit. I really like how, again, the direct approach, the way you just say, this is what needs to be done. I mean, if you're not willing to do this, you're not going to have the result. I mean, that's just truth. That's just truth. And I know I've worked with parents of all different levels, and I talk about my three levels of parenting. You have the dictator, the helper, and the rescuer. And a lot of parents tend to take on that rescuer style. They'll say, well, because I did so many bad things when I was younger, I can't help make my kids do anything different than me. And I'm like, oh yeah. Yep. But you just tell them, right? You just say, no, if you want your kids to be better or have all the tools and skills they need, you got to do this, period.
We got to teach them.
Yeah.
Right? And if we don't teach them, who's going to?
Exactly.
They're going to get it from someone. They're going to adopt somebody else's values. They're going to adopt somebody else's teaching. They're going to be even more confused. I've been going through and polling teachers from around the country over the last few months. When you really break it down, most teachers will tell you that the two biggest things lacking for students these days is A, they don't have confidence, and B, they can no longer focus the way that we could 20 years ago. Now, when you break that down, you say, well, why is that the case? Well,
life's been easy for them, so to speak.
Yeah,
right?
there's a number of factors obviously that go into that.
Yeah, there is, and so.
But we teach. That's one of the things we do in the arts. That's our focus at our martial arts school specifically, and through Operation Limitless, is how do we improve confidence, how do we improve focus, and how do we mitigate or decrease anxiety, or stress, right? And you've been a counselor and helped thousands of people yourself. You know that there's some very systematic models that you can use to make those things work in virtually everyone, not in everyone, but in virtually everyone, again, across that wide spectrum, right? And you can make a huge impact. The problem is none of them are super easy, quick fixes.
Right.
They take some focus and work.
Right.
So you have to teach people the model.
Oh,
and
that
then
four-letter word, work.
Yeah. You have to teach people the process.
Awesome.
And then reinforce the process.
All right. Well, our guest today has been Brett Lechtenberg. Again, he's the author of the book Reclaiming the Clock and also the creator of the Operation Limitless project. How can people find out more about this, Brett?
Well, we're setting the event dates right now, so there's not like a schedule of events on a calendar somewhere at the moment. Okay. However, you can go to operationlimitlessproject.com and you can see our last event and how it was structured is up there, and you can kind of read about the instructors and the mission. As we finalize the dates, there'll be a schedule that goes up there. But everybody's got a busy schedule, and everybody's doing this part-time at the moment. And then if somebody wants to reach out to me, they can go onto Facebook, and you can find Operation Limitless. We haven't done a ton of marketing on this. This has been research and development phase.
Yes.
Right? Making sure that what we say actually works. We can prove that what we say works and what we do works. So we're just now kind of entering the marketing phase, if you will. So you can go to Operation Limitless on Facebook, like our page. It's got an infinity symbol in the red letters that say Operation Limitless. You can also find me on Facebook really easy. Brett Lechtenberg. There's only a couple of Brett Lechtenbergs, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Not a whole lot of Brad Neufelds either.
Right.
But
and you can go to my website too, brettlechtenberg.com, and you could reach out to me through there. But I just say brettlechtenberg at Gmail is the easiest way to get me. Everybody knows Gmail.
Yes.
And my name is no hyphens, no spaces, no dashes, just brettlechtenberg at gmail.com.
Well, this is fascinating. I'm excited. And to me, I'm going back and forth. Should we announce this? You're going to be doing a podcast too.
Yeah, that's the goal.
And I'm excited to help you with that and let's get it going, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, Brad, and work with professionals like yourself and Richard Paul Evans and the way that this has come together. We've got interviews coming up with Mark Peterson and Sal Rosano, Bill Schiffenauer, these guys that are instructors, but also I've got a bunch of the people I originally interviewed agreeing to come back and
Awesome.
share more of their experiences and the way they've progressed. I just had a conversation with a couple people this week that I've never interviewed before that are amazing individuals, have overcome incredible adversity and gone on to do some incredible triumphs. So my goal is to bring an amazing podcast and radio show to King's Radio here and Five Kingdoms Radio so that we're bringing value to the world.
Fantastic. And we'll keep you apprised of that too on the website. So be sure and you can stay in touch with this at fivekingdomsradio.com. It's the number 5, Kingdoms with a Y. I always have to put that out there. After a while, everybody will know what it is. But thank you so much, Brett. I'm excited. Let's make this happen.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Brad. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. All right. So, again, if you want to get a hold of us, fivekingdomsradio.com. If you want to get a hold of me individually, you can call me at area code 435-830-6945. Once again, 435-830-6945. If you have a story or something that you've overcome, a great challenge, and want to share it with the world, this is your place to do it. Also, my email address, info@bradjneufeld.com, info@bradjneufeld.com. Until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.